Let's talk about who's going to win the WWE Royal Rumble 2022 and who you should be betting on, because the time is fast approaching and some of these favourites are absolutely insane. Gable Steveson? Same odds as Drew McIntyre. Randy Orton apparently has the same chance of winning as Bray Wyatt. And people are making these bets. That's before we even get to the Women's Rumble, where wrestlers medically retired are supposedly going to be taking the win. What a time to be alive. Hi everyone, I'm Tom Colohue, and I'm a freelance wrestling journalist on Twitch, YouTube and via podcast for PW Torch. Lately I've been breaking exclusive news you can't get anywhere else about the return schedules for Alexa Bliss and Bayley, the WWE 2K22 roster updates and cover stars, and upcoming pushes heading into WrestleMania. Today, we're going to be sharing betting odds and exclusive news about who is going to win the Royal Rumble, and I think that's worth a subscribe. Like the video and comment below who you think should win this year, and let's get started. We'll start with the Men's Royal Rumble, where we have some real confusing options low down the cake in the form of Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon, and CM Punk. To be clear, I've done the research on these betting averages. People have actually bet money that these people will be winning this year's Royal Rumble. I know Vince McMahon's always worth a bet because, let's face it, he's Vince McMahon and he basically booked himself to win a fight with God. And I believe did book himself to win a fight with God. Moving on. But maybe don't spend too much money expecting CM Punk to win a Royal Rumble. These betting odds are based on how much money people have proven willing to spend. So the more money people bet, the more of a favourite someone is. I don't feel the need to tell you why CM Punk isn't winning the Royal Rumble. I feel like our community here is smart enough to know why that's a ridiculous notion. But even though Shane McMahon has the same odds, let's not rule him out, because we all know he is the best in the world. Stranger things have happened, such as, for example, Shane McMahon being the best in the world. As we get higher up the runnings, we start to see a whole lot of money being spent on released talent. People who might genuinely have an outside chance of winning are completely swamped by people with no chance of even being near the arena on the day. Jeff Hardy and Jey Uso are two names with around a 50-1 shot. Also in that field, John Morrison. They just fired him, and he's not best pleased. Here's the first exclusive for you. John Morrison has been kicking up a fuss for weeks now backstage, with many in the WWE believing that he may have been trying to get fired in the wake of his wife being fired from NXT. Well, in this, he certainly succeeded. Curiously, in that same bracket, we have Johnny Gargano. That's not impossible. Gargano has reached the end of his contract, and I don't necessarily see him as a contender for Roman Reigns. But let's say, for example, Seth Rollins takes the WWE Championship from Big E before WrestleMania. Seth versus Johnny is a match I could see happening. Fancy another exclusive? The WWE doesn't just offer money as part of contract negotiations, they also offer pushes. Bobby Lashley, for example, has been promised a match with Brock Lesnar for years. It's never going to happen, but if it convinces Johnny Gargano to sign a new deal, the WWE could well offer a Rumble win. One last name I have to mention in that bracket before I move on. Conor McGregor. A considerable amount of money has already been placed on Conor McGregor winning the Royal Rumble. Fun. The 33-1 section, which I'm going to affectionately label the Bray Wyatt Invitational, contains some genuinely strong options. That's ignoring Bray Wyatt, of course, who was fired because the WWE did not want him. Tyson Fury. Same bracket as Bray Wyatt. More likely than McGregor, sure, still never going to happen. That said, there are some actual contenders here. Shinsuke Nakamura had history with Roman Reigns about a year ago, and, for a moment, we had a glimpse of an exciting program. Randy Orton is in this bracket, and given how weak the top of the Raw main event scene is right now, Orton and of course AJ Styles could be very valuable. Bron Breakker has the same chance of winning, via the betting averages, as Kevin Owens or Finn Balor. That's how far Balor and Owens have fallen. 20 to 1. Now, the actual favourites. Let's run down the top 3, or because we have a joint third, let's run down the top 4. In third place, joint with 2 people, AJ Styles and The Rock. Now, it's quite obvious why The Rock is there. Rumours are everywhere that The Rock will be taking on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, or next WrestleMania, or next WrestleMania, or next WrestleMania. AJ Styles, however, he's been nowhere near the main event scene. Nowhere near. AJ Styles has been working with Omos. He's been working with Matt Riddle and Randy Orton. He's been a tag team guy, and he's never felt like a big deal on Raw. Wrestlers who don't have a clear storyline with either Big E or Roman Reigns, but are still a favourite? For me, that's where the smart money is. Second in the top 3 is Seth Rollins. Again, it's clear as to why this is. Seth is currently engaging in a storyline with WWE Champion Big E, and would also make perfect logical sense lining up against his former Shield mate Roman Reigns. In fact, it makes so much sense that it makes too much sense. Finally, the actual favourite, and I mean by a massive distance, Brock Lesnar. If you're going to throw money at a Brock Lesnar bet, and a lot of people clearly have, don't do it yet. Lesnar and in fact Seth Rollins may well end up being the championship challengers at the Royal Rumble, if not in the build-up per se. Of all the options there, I'd be keeping an eye on AJ Styles over the next few weeks. There will be hints leaning into the Rumble. As we jump into the women's divisions for this year's Royal Rumble, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. We share news here that you can't get anywhere else and break down the news without clickbait or sensationalization. We're aiming for double figures for likes and comments, so let me know who you want to see win the Rumble in the comments as well. The men's Rumble looked like a free-for-all and a half. The women's less so, though there are still some surprising names in there. Stephanie McMahon is 250 to 1. Somebody placed a bet on Stephanie McMahon winning the Royal Rumble. At least with the Shane McMahon bet, you can automatically feel yourself hating it because it's scarily likely. Don't take that bet. Indy Hartwell stands alone at 66 to 1. That would be a major surprise, but it's one of those where if you focus on it, you start to kind of like the idea. And I know more than just me will be drawn in by that, so be careful. Trish Stratus, 50 to 1. And that sounds like okay odds until you recognise that Tamina is also 50 to 1. Tamina's definitely not winning that Royal Rumble. The most appealing name of everyone in the 33 to 1 bracket is Mandy Rose, who is unlikely given that she just got moved back down to NXT. Another bit of exclusive? She was moved down there because the WWE, in this case largely Bruce Pritchard and John Laurinaitis, believed that she was in need of further development. Given how many others have lost their jobs and lost their chances, this move may well have saved her job. Will she win the Royal Rumble? No. Bianca Belair is the first name on the list to stand a real genuine chance. Belair versus Lynch or Flair has been done before, but it's clear that Belair is the one that the WWE back the most heavily. Sasha Banks is the only logical opponent for Charlotte Flair for essentially the next 4 months. So WrestleMania could end up being the next installment of Belair versus Banks. They are currently 1-for-1, and a second match at WrestleMania, a rematch as it were, could be the decider. I don't think many people would turn that down if it was offered to them. At 25 to 1, it's not a bad option. Asuka is at 20 to 1. So's Tegan Nox. Kind of undermines the whole thing from where I'm sitting. Asuka is due back soon and on a good schedule for recovery from her arm injury. She's expected to feature in the match, though I don't necessarily see her taking the win. Typically that's Asuka, not Tegan Nox. Once again, they fired her. With this one at least, it's likely that money was spent before she was fired. But I also reached out and found out that money has been spent since she was fired. And now we start to get into the realm of favourites. Names that, while not necessarily the betting favourites, do have strong potential from a booking standpoint. Shayna Baszler, Ronda Rousey and Naomi all occupy the 16-1 bracket, together with Lacey Evans and Charlotte Flair. These are all risks, apart from Charlotte Flair, if she has no title come the Rumble, but not necessarily bad bets. Even if you're wrong, betting on Charlotte Flair is usually a risk worth taking. Sonya Deville and Rhea Ripley are on 12-1, and Becky Lynch stands alone at 10-1. This leaves our 5 favourites, and I've got to say, there are some bad bets in here. Alexa Bliss is in 5th, and I think a likely winner should the number 1 pick not be available. She has history with both Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, and is a WrestleMania caliber competitor. That's all fine. 4th is Paige. Methinks people have found themselves with a little bit of edge fever. 3rd is Raquel Gonzalez. Once again, not impossible, but not someone I'm going to be backing. She's popular amongst NXT management, but much less popular amongst NXT 2.0 management. Yes, you heard what you thought. You heard there. We break news here. 2nd is Sasha Banks. This is a very similar situation as Seth Rollins on the men's section, as a very likely candidate for both booking and gambling, as it were. Just a very likely candidate, no matter what happens. But in number 1, someone that I have personally mentioned in this capacity for months now, Bayley. I have already shared considerable news on Bayley's return schedule right here on channel Tom Colohue, and you can check that out right after you finish watching. For now though, know that Bayley's recovery is going well, and that should she feature in the Royal Rumble, she would have to be very carefully protected. That said, it's not like it would be the first time that the WWE have done that. I'll be honest with you, I might be putting some money down on this one. These odds and certain communications have come direct from Sky Bet and have been checked multiple times before the recording of this segment. If you gamble, please gamble responsibly, and remember that I will be hosting a full watch party for next year's Royal Rumble on both YouTube and Twitch. Subscribe here and like this video so you don't miss out. Let me know who you think will win in the comments. I've been Tom Colohue, you've been fantastic, and I'll see you again soon.